What is up, everybody? Welcome in to our special members only live Q&A. Thank you so much for being here. Always appreciate you guys. I have about an hour to get to as many questions as I can, so we'll do so right away. Obviously, the big news for today is that the Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals agreed to a trade to send Joe Flacco to Cincinnati. Likely, I would assume, making him the starter for this week. Not a guarantee. There was a report from Adam Schefter that says that the hope is that he is ready to play this week. He's a veteran. I'm sure he's going to be good to go. Obviously, doesn't give Flacco a ton of time to get ready and prepared. I'm sure Flacco doesn't mind having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as his new weapons. Does change things maybe a little bit, but not a ton. You have to prepare for two quarterbacks as far as the line goes. As of yet, it has not moved 1/2 of a point or anything like that. It is still 14.5 for Green Bay, despite the trade. So it doesn't seem to move the needle one way or the other. But something that Green Bay will have to now be extra prepared for is the potential of both Joe Flacco as well as Browning. So we'll see. Again, they have already studied Flacco. They shut him down pretty well in that game against the Browns. Against Green Bay, Joe Flacco had, was 21 of 36 for only 142 yards, no touchdowns, one interception, a passer rating of 55.6. Furthermore, he has a worse offensive line now in Cincy than he did in Cleveland. Obviously, better receivers. But if you're losing sleep over Flacco now being the quarterback, I would say you probably shouldn't. Doesn't necessarily mean that Green Bay automatically wins the game or anything like that. But this shouldn't move the needle one way or the other. But interesting that Flacco likely to be the starter in this game for Cincinnati. Nonetheless, let's get into our questions right away. Appreciate the questions, Ethan. Hey, Andy, what do you think of from left to right to try Morgan, Banks, Ryan, Tom, or even more Tom, Bank? I'm assuming, well, the first one, Ethan, you're missing an offensive lineman in there. Tom, Banks, Jenkins, Morgan, Belton. I'll just say this from a blanket statement. To me right now, this is not a situation where everything's fixed if you just move one player one place or another. That's not what this is. The first thing I'll say is I don't want to move Zach Tom anywhere. He's the one guy that I can count on, can trust, can set it and forget it. I don't want to touch Zach Tom with a 1 million foot pole. He's my right tackle, and I'm not changing that. Almost no matter what. Banks is your left guard. He's not moving really anywhere else. I don't see that happening. I don't see Jenkins being moved off of center, nor do I think he should be at this point in time. I still think he's their best option at center. He played better this past week week and a half ago against Dallas. I think you still keep him there. If you want to have conversations between Morgan, Walker, Ryan, whether it be, Walker and Ryan, Morgan and Ryan, or Walker and Morgan, I think those are probably the conversations that you're having. But for now, I want to see what my projected starting lineup actually looks like before I'm making any sort of major changes. And the bigger thing is the issues here aren't due to placement or where players are playing. It's technique, it's fundamentals, and it's getting them to gel and play together consistently. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking to move anybody at this point in time. But if I were, I would first say, I want to see what Walker, Banks, Jenkins, Ryan, and Tom look like together in a cohesive offensive line, which is what you were actually expecting. If you want to platoon Morgan and Ryan, so be it. That's fine. I don't have a major issue with that, but I want to see a little bit of consistency and see if those guys can start playing a little bit more consistent football before I'm starting to move people around. And Zach Tom's a complete non-starter for moving him anywhere else. Another offensive line question. I find it interesting to think 4 of our 5 of our starting offensive line could be free agents or gone next year. Sheed, Jenkins, Banks, Ryan, Kennard, even. What's your thoughts on that? Banks he'd have to play just god awful the remainder of this year to get moved on in this next offseason. He'll be back. I would say 99% chance he's back. Sheed, Ryan, and Jenkins are all very much within the realm of possibility. Kennard's a free agent as well. They started to try to, make sure that they're good to go with this by drafting Anthony Belton in the second round last year, or this current 2025 draft, and then drafting Jordan Morgan in the first round the year before that. But they are going to need a better version of Morgan and Belton if they want to be a consistent offensive line while losing a lot of those players. It's a very interesting position going into the offseason, and I would argue the number 1A thing that they're going to have to address, whether it be via re-signings, signing new players, drafting new players, Like you could see a very different offensive line next year in Green Bay. I still think Banks will be there. Obviously, you're going to have Zach Tom there, and then you're going to have Belton and Jordan Morgan, but somebody else is going to probably have to step up. You do have some other options. We'll see if Travis Glover can give you anything, if Jacob Monk can develop. We don't know anything about John Williams at this point, so it's not completely barren, but they're going to probably have to make some moves, again, either re-signing, trade, draft, or free agency to kind of fill out that offensive line. Last question on these offensive line struggles. I know we all blame LaFleur, but how much should we be letting the blame slide from Steno? Not Steno. Steno's the offensive line coach. Ultimately it falls on LaFleur because he's the coach. And then there's some on Steno because he's the offensive coordinator. But this is on Luke Butkus, first and foremost as the offensive line coach. He's got it. Like when you look at individual coaches, right? The coaches for different position groups, what I always look at, because we don't know what's going on in the room, I look at how many players are meeting expectations, how many are exceeding, and how many are failing or falling short of those expectations. And right now, almost to a person, the entire offensive line is falling short of expectations. So I start with Butkus, but Matt, Steno, everyone is going to have an all hands on deck approach to make sure that offensive line is playing much better through the remainder of the season, because it's not sustainable to play the way that they have so far. What happened to the Pack-A-Day radio show? So it is done. They basically came to me and said they have new shows that are longer formats. It was pretty much the only explanation I was given. Don't know if it was anything else. Was not given any sort of constructive feedback at all in the last year, other than like the first month of just a couple minor things that I could have done differently to make it sound a little bit more radio-y. So I don't know. They still obviously want me on as a guest on certain shows. So I'm still part of the network in a paid role in some capacity. But yeah, we'll see. I'll just say I'm very appreciative of the opportunity from everyone there. Not losing a ton of sleep over it. I'll just put it that way. I enjoyed my time doing it, but a year was probably about what I needed, just to kind of get the feel for it. And yeah, I think it was probably for the best all the way around. Like I said, enjoyed doing it. It was fun, but that was a good time. No sleep lost about that. Very hopeful for this team still, but I have three concerns: our unhealthy offensive line, corner, and defensive tackle without Wyatt. The Jair release looks great in hindsight at the moment, but I still feel the corners against top wide receivers. Have you looked into potential trade targets at either corner or defensive tackle that can come into play meaningful ball, like Asante Samuel? But the tackling is an issue, of course, but is the coverage, if the coverage is good? I'll take it. I'm still very hopeful regardless, but definitely would like a piece to add behind Wyatt. Also extend Romeo Dobbs. Goody refused to watch the Guardian Cap anywhere else. Just get it done. We'll talk about Romeo Dobbs later this week. I was actually going to talk about it for today's episode, but the Christian Watson in return from injuries made a lot more sense for today's show. I do think we'll talk about some Dobbs later this week on a full episode. As far as just kind of going back here, your three concerns: offensive line, corner, and defensive tackle without Wyatt. Let's start with the first one. I'm not necessarily worried about the health of the offensive line at the moment. Tom and Banks are already practicing. Anthony Belton's a high ankle sprain, which is usually like a 4-week sort of thing. There's no long-term issues here on the offensive line from a health standpoint. Jacob Monk just started practicing again. I think overall those are good things, and you're looking for that group to get healthy. The play of the offensive line in general is concerning to me, but I think some of these players returning from injury, playing better, Zach Tom, Aaron Banks specifically, can go a long way. I liked what Elton Jenkins did in week 4, was much better than the first 3 weeks. I think that will settle down and get better inherently, but that group does need to play better if they want to be true contenders. Corner, it's interesting. The week 4 game was not good. I didn't think Valentine was good. I didn't think Nixon was good. I certainly did not think Hobbs was good. That was a little bit of an eye opener. What I will say is I thought the first 3 weeks was really good from the corners, and it seemed to marry up really well with the pass rush. I'm not willing to have panic or concern yet. I also like what Javon Bullard for the most part has done in the slot. That gives you another option there too. It feels like something was just a little bit off in that game against Dallas. If it starts becoming a trend, I'll be a little bit more concerned, but I think you can win with that group. I really do. If they could add a piece there, sure, go for it. But right now, I'm pretty good. I do have some concerns overall with the depth. If you lose a Keyshawn Nixon or a Carrington Valentine or a Nate Hobbs or a Javon Bullard, I think your depth really gets shaky really quick. So that's a little bit concerning to me. But right now, not a ton of panic at that position. If all of a sudden the next couple of weeks we see these corners continue to get thrashed a little bit, all right, now you might need to see them make a move around the trade deadline for a corner who can come in and play that spot. And then as far as defensive tackle without Wyatt, it seems like this is going to be a couple week thing at the most, maybe 3 weeks more. He's not been placed on IR yet. If that's the case, I feel like they can get through these next few weeks without Devontae Wyatt. They'll have the defensive tackles with Brinson actually active in the game that they need. I don't think it's anything to lose sleep over at this point. If you lose Devontae Wyatt come a playoff game or a playoff run, I think that is very concerning. For me, I would be looking for one more rotational piece. I don't think you have to go out and get a top tier defensive tackle, but I do think one more piece for that defensive line that you can go out and trust a little bit more than maybe a Nasir Stackhouse or a Warren Brinson would be warranted and would probably be a really smart move for Green Bay. All right, Dan, when Christian Watson is back on game days, which receiver do you think he takes the most snaps from? I'm really excited to see him and Golden on the field at the same time. I would assume that when everyone is healthy, we're going to see a lot of Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Golden, Wicks. Like, I think those five will rotate through pretty regularly. And I think you're going to stop seeing the snaps for Savion Williams and Malik Heath really with any sort of regularity. For now, I think you can take Jaden Reed out of that group because he's hurt. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be Dobbs, Wicks, and Reed getting the primary, with Watson getting a helping of snaps here and there. And then they'll probably have to decide if they want that number 5 to be Malik Heath or if they want it to be Savion Williams. Savion Williams does play as the kick returner, so he might have a little bit better opportunity to be active unless they want to go with 6 active wide receivers. But I would assume over time, it's Savion Williams and Malik Heath who are really going to get the most snaps kind of taken away from them. Welcome back, Andy. How was Sin City? Did you do some good sinning? Nothing crazy from a sinning standpoint, but it was fun. I enjoyed my time. I wish I could say I recharged the batteries. I didn't. I just, wore the batteries even thinner on that trip, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. And always a good time in Vegas. Got to see a Brewers win while I was down there. Not obviously in person, but, sports bar down there. And just a fun time overall. Yeah, no complaints. I love this season. He needs to be a bit better in decision-making, but he's young. I mean, I kind of disagree with that. I mean, we're talking minimal interceptions and interception-worthy plays at this point from Jordan. And for me, like a couple interceptable throws or turnover-worthy plays are just sort of the cost of doing business over a month of the season. PFF has him at 4 turnover-worthy plays through 4 games. It's basically 1 per game. Let's see where some of the other quarterbacks are at. Josh Allen has 3 through 5 games. Mahomes has 6 through 5 games, so about the same as Jordan. Lamar has 3 through 4 games. Let's see where Aaron's at. Aaron has 3 through 4 games. So we're talking about like maybe 1 more turnover worthy play per game than what some of the best quarterbacks are at. Who else could we look at? I don't know. Who would be, let's take a look at Dak. Dak Prescott's got 5 through 5 games. Jalen Hurts is at 3 through 5 games. So that's pretty good. But I mean, we're talking on the same wavelength here of really any of the top quarterbacks in the league, right in the same vicinity. I honestly think the bad decision making is way overblown. I thought there was a point at the beginning of the year last year when he came back from injury, from that until about the bye week, he had a little bit of a period where he was throwing too many interceptions and making too many mistakes. I think a lot of that is the injury where he couldn't escape the pocket as much. So he would have to kind of make a lot quicker decisions, didn't have the ability to buy time, roll out, get outside the pocket, make plays, and instead try to do it with his arm a little bit more. I think he got himself into a little bit of trouble, learned from it, and it wasn't an issue in the second half of last season, and it's certainly not been an issue through the course of this year. If you're saying through 4 games and as many aggressive throws that they make down the field that he has 4 turnover-worthy plays so far, that is 1,000,000% within the realm of cost of doing business of being a quarterback in the league. Nothing egregious whatsoever. And as just quoted by some of those other stats, like right in line with some of the other top quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think it's completely not correct to say that he's had too much poor decision making or anything like that. I think he's playing really, really good football. I don't think it's come around to most Packer fans yet just how well he has played through 4 games. Joe Flacco with a chance to go 2-0 against Matt LaFleur this season. I was hoping it wasn't Jameis, but someone who already beat us this year is much worse. And again, Flacco played really poorly in that game. That was due to Myles Garrett and a really good Browns defense and really nothing to do with Joe Flacco or the Browns offense. Again, it should not change your thinking or your calculus on this game whatsoever. And he barely knows the offense. It's going to be a bit of a weird match going and playing with Zach Taylor to begin with. I think that's going to take some time to get the chemistry down. I don't think this changes anything whatsoever. Andy, sorry, I missed Mike's full explanation the first time. Could you break down the silent count issues the offensive line is having? What process are they doing and what should they be doing instead? So it's weird. It doesn't seem like they're really using like a silent count. So silent count, you're going to say like, once we get the call, it's going to be 1,000, 2, 1,000, or there's going to be a count, right? You're going to count it in your head. And then on 2, 1,000, the ball is snapped and everyone knows to move at the same time. Doesn't really feel like they're doing anything. And sort of Jenkins just kind of looking between his legs for, Jordan to either, stomp his foot or clap his hands, whatever the case may be, or just try to hear the cadence. He snaps it. Then he's got to get his head up and see where everyone's at. But then everyone's just kind of going at the snap of the ball and you gain no advantage between the offensive line and the defensive line. And the defensive line kind of has the advantage in that situation. So they just need to work on their overall silent count procedure and make sure that they are putting their players in a position to be successful. I'm not sure why it is the way that it is. Feels very odd to have a NFL pro offensive line that's doing it the way that they've been doing it. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's not obviously been an issue for them at home, but they've got the friendly confines of Lambeau Field and everyone, for the most part, is quiet at home. And it's been a much bigger issue on the road. They have a week here, another week to get ready for that. Their next road game in Arizona, which I would assume will be a lot of Packers fans there as well. And then you get to Pittsburgh after that, right? That will be a very raucous crowd. So you can imagine that that's going to be one where hopefully by Pittsburgh, they get those issues all completely ironed out. Don't think we forgot about the one chip challenge and the no hat video, Andy. I did a no hat Bleacher Report lately just because, but I have no issue doing a no hat video. I will be totally honest on the one chip challenge. I have no issue doing the one chip challenge in any way, shape, or form in general. For those of you who know, when I had my surgery, what was that, like a year ago now? I forget when it was. I had acid reflux surgery. And one of the very worst things for acid reflux is really spicy food. And for whatever reason, as of late, I don't know if my surgery didn't fully take or whatever, my acid reflux has really been bothering me. So I am honestly a little bit worried with the way my acid reflux is, that if I did a one chip challenge, that I would literally be in really bad shape for a month or worse. So that's honestly my one trepidation with it at the moment. The one chip challenge outside of the acid reflux would suck. Don't get me wrong. I would not be looking forward to it, but I honestly think I probably would have done it by now. If I can get my acid reflux a little bit more in control, that would be something that I'll take a look at again. But I will do it at some point in time. I really, truly believe that. But I might need a little bit of time or maybe even another surgery first before that ends up happening. But we'll figure it out at some point. We'll do a no hat episode here coming up just for you, Landon. Sometimes when I'm listening to on audio, I have to double check that I'm not listening at 1.2. John, that is, it's funny. I've heard this on multiple occasions from numerous people. Many people thanking me. They're like, oh, thank you so much for talking faster so I don't have to move it to 1.25 or 1.5 because, I like when people are just kind of getting to it. And even if you're talking slow, I'm going to put you at 1.25 or 1.5 anyway. So they're kind of thankful in a way. Others are like, well, slow down. Well, if you want it slow down, you can also put it at 0.75 and slow it down if you'd rather do it that way. And then you get slower, Andy. But I will tell everyone every single time, I talk fast when I'm excited about something. If I wanted to talk slower, it's really not that big of an issue. I have the ability to pace myself when I'm talking about anything that I want to talk about. It's pretty simple, actually. And if I want to go slower, absolutely could go slower. But when I am excited about things like the Green Bay Packers, for instance, I talk faster. I also just like the ability to not have the dead air and the dead space and just want to kind of keep things moving and keep talking about what I'm passionate about, which is of course what we're talking about in each episode. So it's always going to happen. It's not going to change. If that's not your cup of tea, I totally get it. I understand it entirely. There's a lot of other great, I'm not talking about you, John, but there's a lot of other great Packers podcasts out there, and go out and support them. But when I'm passionate about something, I'm going to talk fast because I'm excited about it. And probably not changing ever, if I'm being honest. I think Matt LaFleur needs a game day analytics assistant. He has one. When to go, when to kick, etc. Run versus pass in late game situations. Maybe does he already have one? He does. So he needs to listen more. I don't disagree. Along those lines, do you think LaFleur is too focused on the offensive game planning to get the rest of the details of prepping the team right? I don't at all. And guys, if you see some of the time management and clock management and some of the stuff around the league, it's not great. It's not absolving Matt. I think he needs to be better, but I don't think it's quite as bad as people think. I think the end of the Dallas game was really brutal. No question about it. That can't happen. But no, I don't like the 2-minute drill, for example, against Dallas. I have seen them time after time in training camp. You guys have seen me tweet about their 2-minute drills. They spend an exorbitant amount of time on those situations. From Matt's perspective, when he was talking in his press conference recently, what happened in that situation is they were in hurry up. You might say, well, it didn't seem like they were hurry up. Hurry up is different than no huddle. No huddle is warp speed, meaning that or maybe I'm confusing the two off the top of my head, but like they're not an end of the game, hurry up offense. I guess I was transposing the two, I think, but they weren't an end of the game hurry up offense where you've got to go ultra fast speed. They were in like no huddle. They're normal, like middle of the game, no huddle, where we're going to play with pace. We're not going to go with a huddle. We're going to get to the line right away and call plays, but we're not exactly going warp speed. And they needed to make that switch to, warp speed and make sure everyone was on the same page. They weren't. That was the communication problem, but they practiced those situations all the freaking time. So to me, it wasn't necessarily a lack of preparedness. It was a lack of, improvisation in the moment to be able to make that adjustment and make that to sort of flip that switch and then to communicate that to everybody. And this is ultimately on Matt. So don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted in any other way. It's one of those things where like, when your kids do something and you're like, I didn't even think I needed to tell you that. It seems like such common sense. Like, I didn't think I needed to tell you to like, brush your teeth after eating or whatever. Like, you should have just been doing it. Like, and you get those moments of like, oh, now I've got to, parent on this thing that I thought was such common sense. I didn't even need to parent on. Like, I'm sure Matt was thinking like, do I really need to tell you to hurry the hell up? Like, what do you mean you need me to tell you to hurry the hell up? Look at the damn clock. What do you like? You're an NFL player. Go out, hurry up, let's get going. Like it shouldn't need to be said, sort of thing. But once it's happening that way, well, then it needs to be said, and you need to course correct a lot quicker. So ultimately on Matt, but he's probably thinking like, this is not something that even needs words. Like if I say like, hey guys, it's time to hurry up, you probably look at me and be like, yeah, we know there's no time left. But apparently for some reason that needed to be said in that moment. How did Will Shepherd look returning punts and kicks in camp? Any other PS players who can return? Shepherd looked fine as a punt returner, and the fact that he could catch the ball cleanly and he looked very confident in doing so. No danger after the catch whatsoever on my viewing of like, him making people miss and making big plays. So safe, but not spectacular. As far as the rest of the practice squad, Nair does not seem like one. I don't know much about Jacoby Keeney James. I'd have to go and look at him a little bit further. Micah Robinson at corner is not. I don't think Pierre Strong Jr. is. So no, not a ton of return options unless Jacoby Keeney James can do it. And I'd have to go back and research him a little bit more to speak confidently on that one way or the other. Nothing on Lloyd's injuries. Who are the running backs on the roster when he's back? I think all four. I don't think they get rid of any of the running backs. I think they just kind of work their way around it. They've got 2 open roster spots right now. More guys will get hurt that you need to put down for a period of time or whatever. So I think it's probably just all 4, unless one of those 3 gets injured and has to go on the injured list, and that's who he ultimately replaces. But for now, I think they probably would keep all 4 if all 4 were healthy. Do you see the Packers trading for interior defensive line depth at or before the trade deadline? Well within the realm of possibility. I don't think it's a absolute must. I don't think anything's an absolute must at this standpoint. I would say if there is a trade over the course of the next few weeks, it'll be dictated more on an injury that has yet to take place based on anything that they're necessarily lacking right now. Offensive line depth, defensive tackle depth, corner depth. I think those would be the three that you would probably look at, or maybe a returner. Like those would be the 3 or 4 that I think you could look at going into the deadline as, hey, if the right opportunity presents itself, we could go and do something. I will say for Goody, he wants to improve the team. He's not going to do anything ridiculous, anything stupid, anything reckless, but he knows when he's traded for Mike already that, hey, we're going for it this year. And if another opportunity presents itself, he'll go after it. He also has to be a little cognizant of he's already missing 2 future first round picks, traded a 6th away for Kennard in 2027. We'll get some comp picks back in 2027 as well, but he has to be a little bit cautious with his draft capital overall with already trading away 2 first round picks. From a constructive perspective, what are some things we should see on WeFence over the coming weeks that would address the abject failures we all witnessed? I don't think it's anything crazy. Protect up front on your field goal and extra point teams. Like that's got to be a no-brainer at this point. Get your best players out there. I think on kick coverage, you also have to look at how you can maybe get a couple more players out there at least in big plays, big moments, right? Where you've got to cover a kick like late in the game, late game situation, right? Like Edgerrin Cooper should be out there where the game's on the line. You're up by 3. You need to hold them deep. Edgerrin Cooper should be out there and Xavier McKinney should be out there. Like you should have some big time players in those big time moments. And I think they just got to find a kick returner and punt returner. And Keyshawn Nixon should be your kick returner, by the way. That to me is a pretty simple thing at this point. And then at punt returner, they've got to find one. They just got to find one, simple as that. Can you break down how the 21 window works, please? 21-day window. Does it mean anything if you aren't taking off PUP after 4 weeks besides they are still hurt? Yes, Ethan, very much so. So there's a couple things that you can do. So you open a 21-day practice window, which means you get 21 days to practice, and then you have to make a decision. If you shut them back down, they are done for the year. If you activate them, then they are on the active roster. So if you open the PUP window and they aren't ready to go and you place them back on PUP, done, season over. Same thing. IR, I'd have to do a little bit more research on, but there is a workaround, okay? How it can work is that, let's say now Christian Watson's 21-day window is open. So they add him to the active roster for a day, and then on the next day, put him on IR and can return him at some point. So there is a workaround there where if after that 21 days, he's not ready, you can either just put him on the active roster and keep him there, but maybe not put him on the active roster yet, right? On the 48-man game day roster, or you could immediately IR him if you feel like he's going to need a few more weeks yet or 4 more weeks yet, and then bring him back after that. Normally, the situation is that if you're opening up the 21-day window, you already know that they're going to be ready to play within those next 21 days. And really the 21-day window is more of a ramp up period to get them ingrained in the offense and to get some rust off and those sort of things so that they're ready to go fully or a little bit more when that 21-day window closes. So it's usually not a major issue, but if something would come up where it wasn't available, you have basically the choice of just put them on the active roster and wait, put them on the active roster and then IR them so you could bring them back later, or shut them down for the year at that point in time. No question. Just wanted to mention Jackson Churio has an OPS of 2,000 through 2 games against the Cubs. He is an absolute stud. What a joy to watch. My wife got me tickets to the Ravens game for an early birthday present. Never been to a game. Taking my oldest. He's not a big football fan, but trying to get him on board. So excited, John. That is freaking awesome. Enjoy the hell out of that game. Should be a fun one. I know the Ravens have kind of been far below expectations so far, but I think they'll probably be playing much better football by that point in time. That should be a really fun game. I do not see Flacco beating the Packers twice, Drew. I do not see that. So jazzed to get Christian back soon. One of my favorite players. Wanted him since before the 22 draft. He's been better than people think when healthy. Just got to keep him on the field. Yeah, that's the big thing. Hopefully all of his injury issues can be behind him and he can just go out and play great football moving forward. But in the meantime, extremely happy for him that he's back out there practicing with the team and should be back in games sooner rather than later. Hey, Andy, would you say this year is Super Bowl or bust year after the all-in move to acquire Parsons, Love being the starter for 3 years, second year of Halfley's D and all of that? Helson, the goal is clearly Super Bowl this year. I don't think there's any question about that. I think any playoff exit, or if it's before that, would be a disappointment. Okay. Like, I don't think there's any two ways around that. If it's in the wild card, divisional, conference championship, Super Bowl, if they lose, it'll be heartbreaking. It'll be disappointing for a season that they've invested a lot into. I think that trade in particular is we think we've got a window and we need to win a championship during that window type of trade. In the Jordan Love, Micah Parsons, Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst next 3 to 4 year window, if they win one, it will all be worth it. So I don't think we're in the situation where, like in Last Dance 2021, where that was it. That was their last chance. And now you're going to have to rebuild a little bit. This is not that. If they lose this year, it will not be, well, they're going to have to sell everything off or start from scratch or anything. They're going to be right back competing in 2026 again. I do think this iteration of the team right now is going to give them one of their best possibilities and best opportunities. And now is a great time to do that. The NFL is really freaking hard and it's going to be difficult. So, yes, it's a Super Bowl season that they're shooting for. That's the goal. That's everything that you're putting into this year, right? And furthermore, like I said, it's disappointing if they will lose at any point and not make it to the Super Bowl or not win a Super Bowl. No question about it. But I don't think like this is the final year, the be all end all. They still have years open, but this is a really good opportunity and hopefully they can take advantage of it. Donald, my man, thank you so much. Andy, I've been using your patented phrases, accidental forgiveness and proof of concept every chance I get when it doesn't make any sense. Is that okay? Keep up the great work. Use all the Andyisms that you want. Lord knows I will continue to use them, even if I don't want to at certain times. So yeah, go use all the Andyisms that you want. No copyright needed. No, go feel free to do it anytime you want. After 4 weeks, if everything remains generally the same on defense for the remainder of the year, how is the Parsons trade aging in your opinion? Well, Parsons is playing amazing. So that's the main thing that you can judge this on. Is Parsons what you wanted him to be and or more? And for me, so far, he has been. He's been everything that you possibly could have wanted out of that deal. The Dallas game, defensively, was not what you wanted. That's not on Micah. Micah was fantastic in that game. The team in general needs to play better than they have over these last couple weeks if they want to pay off that Micah trade and make it worthwhile, whether that be this year, the following year, whatever. But so far, I don't think you could be any more thrilled with the Micah trade based on how he's played so far. And I'm super excited about what he's brought to this team. And I still think this is a really phenomenal football team whose best football is still ahead of them. And to me, it's a trade that you do a million times out of a million. And now after seeing him in Green Bay, maybe even 2 million times out of 1 million, like you just keep doing it. Michael, has LaFleur been asked about O-line approach for road games? Not seeing the players in front of you means you can't attack. Isn't Jenkins also supposed to help make the adjustment calls? I don't know the exact nuance of how they're making their adjustment calls, but you would assume the center would be a part of that. As far as I know, Matt has not been asked as of yet. If I get the opportunity to at some point get to a press conference, I would love to ask him it. Because of how busy I've been, I've not had the opportunity to get there, but sometime hopefully in the near future, we can ask him that question. We all just appreciate the football career of Joe Flacco. Comes out of an FCS school, wins a Super Bowl, gets Lamar, survives the Jets, and still starting in year 18. Hell of a run, Joe. Really is. Like, those are some of the really cool stories for a University of Delaware quarterback. Pretty freaking amazing. Andy, what stayed in Vegas after your departure? Some of my money, Gary. Some of my money definitely stayed in Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, Gary. Going into the season, the question with Love was whether the back end of 2023 was what he going into the season. The question with Love was whether the back end of 2023 was what he is usually, or if the 2024 season was. I think it's safe to say he's a lot closer to the 2023 version. Tom, I would totally agree with that so far. Obviously, a long way to go still, I want to see it through a full season. There's going to probably be some hiccups along the way, but I'm thrilled with the way that Jordan is playing through 4 games so far. Andy, on the DT rotation, there is this vet in Dallas that is playing much better off a disappointing 2024. And apparently Dallas is in the market for picks. Wouldn't that be just a crazy scenario if that ends up being the case? Can't imagine that ends up being the case, but that would be a wild one. Appreciate that, Gary. I work on my cadence all the time. True story. All right. Just a real quick cadence story. Youth Pop Warner, actually it was youth flag football to begin with. Youth flag football, I want to say I was like 7, 8 years old, somewhere in that range, right? We had a flag football team. I was the quarterback for the team. That is much as hard as that might be to believe. I was the quarterback for the team. We'll get to that more in just a moment. I watched football every Sunday. So I was probably maybe a little bit older, but I watched football every Sunday. I was a diehard, right? And Brett was, I had to have been like 10, I guess. So maybe I was 9 to 10 years old. So it had to have been like 9 or 10. But either way, neither here nor there. Brett, I watched every single week, and Brett was one of the best in the world at the hard count. So I mimicked, like I knew the whole cadence of Brett. And on our flag football team, I was the quarterback. We mimicked the cadence, and I knew how to do voice inflection and everything. So I would get to the line at like 9 years old. We were playing 11 on 11 flag football. You had full offensive line, full defensive line, everything. And I was like, ready, set, hot! And like every single time, all of these idiot 9-year-olds, just dummies, just absolute dummies, jumped every single time. And I swear to you, we would make it the entire length of the field just off of cadence. I shit you not. Just off of cadence, we would make it all the way to the red zone. And every single time, we couldn't do anything with it to save our lives. That the other part of quarterbacking definitely escaped me. I could not do all the other stuff that Brett did, but the cadence I had down to a T. So true story, flag football, 9 years old, wherever it was, cadence got us like 80 yards every single time. I don't know what the length of the field was, but got us from one end all the way to the other. They jumped every time, no matter how much the coaches kept yelling at these dumb kids. Hey, don't jump. He's going to do cadence. And then I'd mix things up. And every once in a while, we'd just go right away, just kind of throw things off. Or we would do it on 3. And thankfully, like my teammates, I don't know how, but my teammates would never jump. Like it was almost like we were just running a cadence play where they were like, literally just don't move. Like, don't ever move until you see like Andy get away from quarterback, and then you can move. But it was absolutely remarkable. So that was my quarterbacking journey. Cadence got us the entire length of the field, and then we could never get points off of it, never punch it in the end zone. Very frustrating in that regard, but that was my flag football and cadence experience. Andy, when's the last time you missed a game, and how long was watching Packer games been a priority to you? Has it always been, or did it start when you started podcasting? Yeah, so that's a great question. It's been for forever that I've tried to catch every game known to man. I don't know. So I told the story recently of there was a Falcons game in Atlanta around like October, November-ish. And prior to me doing this full time, if like we have like 4 birthdays right around that time. And so there was a birthday event that was planned, and it was during the game. And like, I tried to get it on that TV, and it sucked, right? I couldn't see it, and I had to watch it later, and kind of already knew what happened. So I before like being a full-time in this job, I couldn't say like, hey, sorry, can't make it to this birthday event for 4 people in our family. I had to go. Well, now I can be like, hey, sorry, that day doesn't work. I have to cover the game, which is so much better and so much more awesome. But that was, I think that Falcon game probably like 6-7 years ago was probably the last time where I missed like an actual game for anything that I can recall. Prior to that, I know back in college, I worked some crazy jobs where I would have to kind of listen to it on the radio. That was in like the Sam Gatto era. The team was already out of it. I think I missed like a couple games where I just had to listen on the radio. But outside of that, it's been pretty few and far between that I've missed any games for anything whatsoever. And certainly it doesn't happen anymore now that I'm covering the team full time. What do you think it would take for Rich to be demoted so he only has to worry about special teams? It would take him stepping down. I think that would be the thing. I think he would say, listen, I'm going to let the special teams assistants take over. I'm going to be an assistant coach only. I'll help with special teams, but they're going to be in charge. I think that's the only way that it probably happens in this year. And then maybe even next year as well. Next year, you could do it a little bit differently, but that would be my guess is either Rich retires or steps down as special teams coordinator to just focus on his assistant coach duties. All right. I think that's all of our questions. I think we got everything in. Want to shout out Donald one more time for the super chat. You are amazing, my friend. Thank you guys so incredibly much for being here. Appreciate you a ton. Thank you for being members. If you're here and you're not a member, means you're listening after the fact where I open it up to everyone. Make sure to become a member because then you get to listen live, ask questions, etc., and be part of the show. We'll be back tomorrow. Paul Farrington show. Going to record with him and Ziggy here in about a half an hour. And then, coming up later this week, happy hour on Friday. There will be a live pre and post game show this week. I will not be doing it. I am going to the game with friends in the stands. As you guys probably know, I do that once a year. I may go one more time this year with my oldest as well. But I will be in the stands this week for the game as a true fan, not as a, analyst in the press box. So looking forward to that. Dan Kotnick and Camille Davis will do your pregame show. Ross Uglam's got you covered for the postgame show, so you can keep an eye on that. I will be good to go for Monday morning's episode, breaking down everything that happened in Sunday's game, though. Lots of great stuff coming up. Appreciate you guys a ton. I'll talk to you soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.